All right. And just making sure that this is going live onto Facebook. Now, I've noticed that I always forget to introduce myself. So if you are just stopping in on this live video today, or maybe you're watching on the replay, let me just reintroduce myself. My name is Shirley Joy Joffe. I'm the founder and creator of the Joyful Abundance Blueprint. And I am a master energy healer and guide. And what I do is I guide and support highly successful entrepreneurs and professionals to understand and open up and unlock their natural intuitive gifts, know themselves fully, so that they can create a life that they desire, of wealth, health, abundance, and prosperity, with ease and flow, all on their terms. So this 5-day series, this little journey that I'm taking you through, are some of the steps that I take my clients through when we go through this journey of the Joyful Abundance Blueprint. It does have 3 elements to it. And the very first one, the foundation, is between what we're doing, this particular journey is step 1 and 2. So elements 1 and 2. Element 1 is uncovering. And that's where what we're doing is we're looking at the identity. We're looking at behaviors and habits that are holding you back, things that may be triggering you so that you are not living in your complete essence, the highest potential of what you can be and who you can be and how you can be in the world. And what I find more important is, rather than what we perceive on the outside of what is going on, is how we actually feel and how we are experiencing things on the inside. When we are experiencing and perceiving and living well and fully in alignment on the inside, the outside environment has no choice but to change. So we work from the inside out. Sometimes there are so many barriers on the outside that we've built up that we do have to go sort of from a process of from the outside in and then the inside out again. So it can be a 2-stage process. Depends how much work has been done already with people on their inner work, how much awareness they've got that they come to. And it's all a journey. It's all an experience. There is no right or wrong. And there is also something which I think a lot of people find very difficult to hear. There is no set outcome. So when people come to me, especially entrepreneurs and professionals, they have been through coaching, they have probably been through healing, they've been through various things where a specific outcome or goal is sought. And what happens often is, by aiming for that outcome and trying to get quickly through the process to get to an outcome, often things are overlooked. And what I do is I take them into deeper spaces so that the outcome that they originally were looking for sometimes actually then looks completely different once their internal world has changed. And what I really sort of impress on these professionals and entrepreneurs, especially the highly successful ones, is actually often the specific goals and ambitions you have are a micro space opposed to what actually can be created in the world. So sometimes the hindrance is not thinking too big, but actually thinking too small. And while setting small incremental goals. So it's a fine balance, not getting stuck. And that's where a guide like myself helps to support their clients through that, so that they're not moving too fast, so they're not actually achieving what their potential is, getting to a goal that isn't actually the goal, or going so slowly that they are actually getting stuck. So we do move fairly quickly, but we do pay attention to the detail. So that's just a little bit about what I do. I help people overcome habits. I help people overcome their environments, overcome their behaviors, looking at things like self-abandonment, self-sabotage, people-pleasing aspects, which human design really, really helps with, helping people to understand where people-pleasing comes from. So knowing your design, there are some specific areas in there and deconditioning that can happen that can actually unhook you from that. Numbing yourself and self-abandonment also, as well as upper limiting. I think those of you who have read the Gay Hendrick book, The Big Leap, you'll understand what upper limiting is. It is when we get to a point where our thermostat has been reached. This can be a ceiling in our work. This can be a life environment, the way our environment is in our life, maybe our homes, maybe how happy our family is, the level of happiness, that thermostat. All of these areas. Oh, did I call this day 3? I meant to call this day 4. Let me just check. All of these areas can be identified as upper limiting. So yes, I did call it day 3. It's actually day 4. So if you're joining me, hello. Hi, Stacey. How you doing? So good time for you, I think, this. But today specifically, we're going to be talking about habits and behaviors. Now, in order to understand the way that works, and I talked about going from the outside in and the inside out, I'm just going to share my screen. Some of you may have seen this. You know, of course, it's so easy to do the energy healing, but I really would like you to see some of the science behind it. So I hope that's okay. I'm going to share my screen briefly, and then I'm going to talk you through a process and how to actually change behaviors and change habits. So there we go. I believe this is shared. Let me put myself back to where I am so I'm not looking in odd places. There we go. So some of you may recognize this diagram. It's very common. It is part of NLP. It's part of psychology now as well. It's Robert Dilts' neurological levels. And what it describes is how people are motivated and where at different places where they can make changes in order to affect the whole thing. Now, those of you who may have worked with NLP in various areas, this is going to be very, very common for you. Those of you who have not, I'm going to very briefly describe what this is. So Stacey, yes, I know you know this one particularly. So at the very, very top of the pyramid, I've been talking about identity, and you'll notice that identity is actually the second level from the top. But before we even understand our purpose, we do need to know who we are, and vice versa. Now, the purpose part is often considered a mission, or whether it's in life or a business. But recently, I've been looking at this because when we identify just a simple mission or a goal or a big achievement, that can often be very, when we actually achieve it, then we kind of get that lost, now what do I do feeling. So I've been re-identifying what purpose looks like as a direction, a space to go towards. So if your purpose in life is to serve people, to bring happiness, calm, and peace, then you have a multitude of avenues, and it is ongoing because there's never an end in how many people you can serve, how much peace, calm, happiness you can affect in the world. And it starts within. So it may be a purpose of bringing that into the world through your own happiness, peace, and calm, and having that as your purpose. Another direction of purpose may be to facilitate learning and growth for the people around you. Now, often the purpose is an outside thing, but you can always turn it in. So you can turn in that purpose and have your purpose in life to be constantly learning and growing and evolving. You'll notice that that purpose direction actually gives you much more scope in order to grow your identity within it, because then your identity becomes an identity of living that purpose. So you become a person who has a value, and there's very little way of your identity causing you an issue when you've got a very clear purpose direction. Now, one of the things which I love to do is actually take a look at people's gene keys, where there is actually an energy of purpose, which can be brought in, and it is individual as well as collaborative with the world, because it links in with the path of love and connection and relationships. So purpose is a very, very fundamental link to how we are in relationships, and that's how we are in the world. So looking at your purpose sphere in Gene Keys, for example, and you can find your Gene Key profile, your hologenetic profile, on genekeys.com. So you don't need to pay anyone to do that. You can get a free one and then just see what is your energetic purpose. So that is what energy is the fulfillment in your life, and then you can actually create your purpose direction in line with that, because then you're in alignment. Now, we talked about identity a little bit yesterday, where we looked at the human design, but you can actually create a lot more around that. So knowing what your essence, what your energy is, and what you've been brought into, looks like a spiritual food pyramid. Yes, it is a spiritual food pyramid, beautifully described. So you can look at the identity through things like human design. But when we did the body meditation on day 2, I took you in the spark of your essence. And that's something that only you can experience. It's not something that someone can tell you what it is. The human design profile just gives you an insight into what that could look like, and what that translates to on the outside. But inside, it's very difficult to describe. It's not something necessarily that that we can have our human brain understand. Now, on this particular pyramid, we're talking about when you don't know your identity, you may have doubt as to who you are and what your role is in the world, or in this case, if you're in work or as an entrepreneur, in your business, you may actually have doubts as to what is your role, what value you have, whether you feel inadequate, whether you have those feelings of self-doubt. Those are side effects of not really stepping into your identity and really knowing and exploring who you are, because who you are does change. It's not like a static thing. A lot of people, when asked, who are you, when this is an identity level question, they'll identify with a job. So for example, they may say, I'm a doctor, or I'm a mum, or I'm a lawyer, or I'm an entrepreneur. So these are identities that they've assigned themselves, but then the rules of society can mess with that. So there will be a certain set of values, rules, we're coming down the pyramid, beliefs, all of these things that attach to that identity that maybe we have not attached to that identity ourselves, but they've been given to us by society. So it's really important. So even if we do identify with, say, I'm a doctor, or I'm an entrepreneur, or all of these things, what does that mean about me? What does that mean to me? And have a look at how many of those meanings really resonate with you. So who do you identify as? Who are you? I will challenge you to say that you are none of these things, of these roles and things that you identify with. You are a unique being experiencing an experience on earth. Now, when you can identify with that, you can actually detach yourself from all those rules. You can detach yourself from the role in society and actually and then align more with your purpose to have a greater role. So you can see how they cascade up and down already. Next down is the skills part. So skills are capacities and things that you have practiced. These are things that you've gotten good at. So you may have heard, if you're a coach, that you may have natural tendencies towards that. You're naturally good at it. But until you practice that skill over and over, the talent is limited. This especially is true in sports. People will have natural talent for a sport, but until they do the regular practice and having that discipline to do that practice, they have the talent but not skills. And when you become competent and you feel competent about your ability, that makes you feel better in your values, and it starts to create beliefs of, I am great at this, I'm good at this, I know how to do this, and I know the right thing to do. And I say right in inverted commas, just through the skill set. So really, this skill set is all about practice and discipline. Now, when you have lots of practice and discipline and your skills get better, that actually comes down into behavior. So it cascades down, but it can also be worked up. Your behavior changes because the behavior part is the unconscious part. So there are levels to behaviors, modifications. So if you want to change your behavior, then there are 3 important considerations. The first one is, are you ready to change? And that's where you look at skills. Are you ready to put in the work, to put in that discipline, to put in that practice, to create a new behavior? Because that's what it is. Are there any barriers to your changing your behavior? So are there things that need to be changed around you? Are there beliefs, going up the ladder again, are they beliefs that don't support a new behavior, which would create that natural doing? And also, when you're changing behavior, and within behavior is habits, within skills is habits as well, that's where these sit. The third consideration is that you can expect to relapse, expect to go back to an old behavior, because beliefs creep up. Once we've pulled out a belief, it's not just that's it, it's gone. Those beliefs have been created over a lifetime, and there are many layers of them. So many people, clients have come to me and they've said, oh, well, I've worked on this before. It's a belief that's maybe, I'm not good at something, or my work has no value, or I have to work hard at what I do, which we're going to do tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to do a self-healing for you along that topic, because that's a really, really pervasive one. And they will have practiced new habits, new behaviors. They've removed the barriers to change. So maybe they've reorganized things. So for example, barriers might be, if you're trying to go to the gym every day, if you're aiming to go to the gym every day, in order to stop yourself not doing that, you get everything laid out the night before. So that's a discipline to do, but it also removes the barrier to changing your behavior, because you've made one less thing difficult for yourself so that you can actually consider that behavior. But you won't change that habit or ingrain a new behavior unless it aligns with your values. So if you have a value of being fit and healthy, and your belief is that going to the gym creates fitness and health, Those are things that need to be installed. And then eventually, once that behavior becomes common, it becomes part of your identity. And your part of that identity, and you don't just have one identity, part of your identity is, I'm a fit, healthy person, and I move and exercise my body in line with my health and with my optimal functioning. For example, that's just off the top of my head, but that might be an identity you can take on. It's not an identity that's going to cause you to do damage to yourself, because you're giving it conditions as in line with. And when you have that identity, getting up in the morning, looking at your gym clothes isn't a big stretch. Okay, yeah, I'm a healthy person, I'm a fit person, and I use exercise as one of the things to keep my body in the optimal state. And checking in with the body, obviously. The last thing, which a lot of people actually work on first, is the environment, just because it's easier to work on the environment. So for example, if you're aiming to have a less toxic life, you might change workplaces. You might change the place you live. You might change family. You may leave. And usually people who are experiencing a disconnect in their environmental space, the words that they use, so on the side it's telling you what sort of words people use. So when you're listening to yourself, giving excuses or saying why something cannot be changed, listen to how you're describing it. So are you describing the environment that you're in as the reason why things cannot change? Are you describing what you're doing as reasons why things cannot change? Or are you describing how not to do things, as in the specific processes as why things cannot change? With values and beliefs, you might say, well, I don't know what the right thing to do is. So then we need to look at what are your values and what are your beliefs. So this has happened to a client recently. They identified a whole load of habits that they didn't like. They identified behaviors that they would like to change. They didn't look at their environment, so they weren't blaming things on the outside, but they just didn't know what to do next. So now I'm actually going to describe to you the steps to behavior change. So if you don't know what the next step is in order to get that behavior change, this is what you need to pay attention to. So there's 5 steps. Stage 1, step 1 is pre-contemplation. So this is what would have happened before you did homework, the day 1 homework, when I asked you to list habits and behaviors that may be holding you back from achieving what you want. So at that point, you're writing things down, but maybe you've got no conscious intention yet of actually making a change. By starting that process of exploration and finding out what habits or behaviors may be unhealthy, you're still in pre-contemplation because you're starting to pull them out. And you don't know that the behavior is unhealthy yet until you are bringing it into your awareness. In order for you to move to the next step, you need to notice that the unhealthy behavior is holding you back from maybe your purpose, from being who you want to be, from living the values that are really important to you. So that's the first step. Step 2 is a contemplation step. So at this point, and most people, if you've done homework on day 1, you're probably sitting in contemplation. So maybe, okay, now I know that this behavior or habit is an issue, is a challenge, and you're starting to look at, okay, what is the benefit of making the change? And what is the cost to me of making the change? Now, the cost to me in healing terms is, how does it serve you to hold on to this behavior or change? There's always a positive intention. The body is smart. The mind is smart, very smart. So And I'm just going to stop sharing, actually. Actually, no, I'll keep sharing. Let me know if it's useful for you to look at going up and down this pyramid as I describe this. So where was I? Yeah, contemplation. Now, people assume, many people assume, that once you've got awareness of a behavior that's an issue, once you have looked at the benefits and even you know what it is that's holding you back, that the change will just automatically happen. And it's really, really pervasive in healing circles, really pervasive. And I love seeing change happen overnight. Usually it's because this stage, this contemplative stage, has actually been in the works for a while. So by the time that person's got to the healer, they've already been in that subconscious mind weighing up what the benefits is of making the change and what the cons are. And they have decided the benefits outweigh the perceived drawbacks. And so they go to the healer, because otherwise you wouldn't go to them. You wouldn't be looking to make a change until you've decided that you want to do a change. You've decided that that's the route you want to go. And that's where things happen really quite quickly. And then that behavior needs to go to the skills place, which is, and into the beliefs, so that it becomes habitual, into a constant, a behavior, a trait, then into an identity, and so on, which I described yesterday. So people who are quite congruent, so they're in alignment with their purpose, identity, and beliefs, will tend to find intrinsic, so internal reasons to change. People who are not so much in line, they're actually using their environment as a guide, and that change may not stick. So if I change, these things on the outside will change. Whereas if you're in alignment, these things on the inside are going to be better when I change. So that's the slight difference of getting yourself into alignment, and why that's so important, and why that's the first step of the Joyful Abundance Blueprint, which is the uncovering. And unlocking is the knowing part. The next step for changing belief, for changing behavior, is the preparation. So start taking action. Typically this can not take very long at all. It may take days, it may take weeks. You look for someone to help you, for example, or you start purchasing the things that are going to assist you to make that behavior that habit into a behavior, and so on. So you're doing small steps. You might even share your behavior change because you've decided that, yes, this is important. So you might share this with family, with friends. You may not share it really, really publicly yet because you've not actually done it yet, but you may share the intention. And once you share the intention, what you're doing is you're making commitment to the outside. And this is where in human design, those with a white will center or heart center, they often find it difficult to stick to these commitments that they make to themselves or to others, which is why it's really important to align from the top down: purpose, identity, beliefs, values. That's going to make it easier for them to follow through. And the more you have a direction, purpose direction, rather than a purpose solid goal, concrete goal, the easier it is actually to follow through, because it's not a hard and fast thing. Step 4 is taking action. So that may be doing the thing, going to the healer, making the changes on a daily basis. And it's important to make small changes incrementally. I can't remember who the guy is who talked about this. There's a very, very famous basketball coach. And I'm just going to Google that. Hang on a second. Because he's used very often, actually. There we go. Yeah. So John Wooden, who's a very famous basketball coach in the US, old basketball coach, I'm not sure he's still even with us, or coaching rather, said, when you improve a little every day, eventually big things occur. When you improve conditioning a little every day, eventually you have a big improvement in conditioning. Now he's talking physically, but this can totally align with internal behaviors, thought patterns, all of those things. They're all conditioning. Not tomorrow, not the next day, but eventually a big gain is made. Don't look for the big quick improvement. Seek the small improvement one day at a time. And I would say to you, if you're looking at internal change, even a day can be very, very long. So maybe even seek for little improvements hourly or quarter daily, you know, those sort of things. That's the only way it happens. And when it happens, it lasts. So I put to you, do you want your change to last? Is that something you want for a lifetime with improvement? Atomic Habits, James Clear also described the 1% rule. Even Tony Robbins talked about 1% improvement. And when you look at, I always look at this from a graphical perspective. If your graph is doing this, all you need is a 1% or a micro change down here. And the change at the top of the graph exponentializes. So yeah, so at the beginning, it may be a very small change. It may just be, for example, you choose to take on a short meditation every day. Or maybe, even if that's too big a step, maybe just to sit in relaxation and contemplation for 5 minutes. And you can make those changes. Whatever feels really big to you, you can break it down. So we are chunking down micro changes. So look for the smallest change. And this is something that actually one of my coaches really helped me with when you have overwhelm. So when there is a lot of overwhelm going on, you can actually chunk down to reduce the overwhelm. So let's say your overwhelm is, and I've been having this, I haven't even got to the small part because it's not been a priority at the moment, is writing my solo book. So that is your goal, for example. Now that's quite big. So if I wake up in the morning and go, oh, I've got to write my book, it's huge. So, okay, I break it down to, I'm going to write the structure of the book. That still may be too big. Maybe I'll write a chapter, write the structure. Maybe it gets to, I'm going to write a line, and that's still too big. Maybe I'll write the title, still too big. Maybe the smallest step is just literally to sit in front of my computer with a blank page for a few minutes and contemplate writing a word, writing a line. But the actual smallest step is just sitting in front of the computer and giving that space. That's it. So, and if even that is too big, you can break it right down into breathe. This is the smallest chunk of any action, the breath. That's why I focus on that a lot, especially when we were doing the body work. The first thing, focus on the breath. That's the smallest thing. If I took you straight into relaxing the body on day 2, that may have been too big a jump. So we start with the breath. We start by being present where we are, being accepting of where we are. Now, step 5 is maintenance. So in maintenance, you've changed your behavior and you turn it into a habit. And these can be can come in interchangeably. So habits can become behaviors, behaviors become habits. But there are often situations where you might be tempted to slip into old habits. Now, I recently had one, and I've been having it for the last, since I got here. So before I arrived in Australia, I didn't touch fizzy drinks. I hadn't touched them. I hadn't actually drunk a fizzy drink for, when was it? I think it was about 10 years where I stopped having fizzy drinks. And I came to Australia, and I was outside of my own environment. I was trying to fit in. I was doing people pleasing because I was in a very toxic environment. So in order for protection, I was doing a lot of people pleasing. And those people, part of fitting in, they would drink a cola. They wouldn't drink water, they would just drink cola. And in order to fit in, and it's not an excuse, it's just a situation, I started to drink fizzy drink again, cola. I hadn't drunk alcohol in over 20 years, and recently I'd noticed that I have drunk a couple of shots of alcohol. Now, why hadn't I drunk it in that long? Because it doesn't agree with my body. My body does not like it. It feels crap the next day. But again, to fit in, what I felt I needed to do to be accepted as a friend, accepted in with the fizzy drinks, to not have constant tension, pain. It actually didn't work, by the way. It did not work, because these things are just things that I put together with that's what's going to happen if I do this. But I slipped. And this brings me to the last point, which is relapse. Relapses are common. It's not that a big deal has happened if you relapse. Expect to relapse, but catch it. Catch it. Now, I haven't caught it, but I have started to notice, oh, hang on a second. So I was still saying I don't drink fizzy drinks as part of my identity, my beliefs about myself, and yet I'm doing it. So there's a disconnect, and the body will feel it. The body will feel that misalignment. The body will know. But I accept that that's a relapse. That's not the status quo. I haven't suddenly become a different person with different beliefs. So I pull myself. And this is where in The Zone of Genius, Gay Hendricks describes recommitting. Not just committing, but recommitting. So whenever there is a relapse, recommit fast. Recommit fast. So for example, if you said to yourself, I'm going to meditate every morning, and one morning you didn't meditate, the fast part is to still do a meditation that day, and then to recommit to do it again in the morning, the next morning, and the next morning, and the next morning. So those are the 5 steps to behavior change. I'm just going to recap them. There's the pre-contemplation, no conscious intention. Contemplation, you become aware that the behavior is an issue, and you start weighing up the pros and cons of change. Preparation, that's where you start taking small actions, and you might share with your closest people. Step 4 is action, actually starting that process of change by doing it, changing, doing the new behavior. Step 5 or stage 5, maintenance, where you have changed it and you need to turn it into habits. This is where discipline comes in, and aligning with your purpose, identities, and beliefs. And then the last thing is to be conscious that you will relapse. There is possibility that you will relapse, and to be okay with that and accept that, and to recommit. So I hope that that is actually making a lot of sense. Let me know what you think in the comments. I have been talking a lot, and I apologize. Actually, I don't apologize. I'm just describing it. I should stop apologizing. That's part of my people pleasing, by the way. That is a people pleasing trait when people apologize. So I am back, not sharing. I would love to see your comments if you're on live, and if you are on the replay. Let me know. Let me know. So while you're writing that out, this is something which I do with my clients. We don't just do energy healing. We look at habits, habit changing, behavior changing. We look at acceptance, first of all. From acceptance, you can actually accept change. If you have complete hatred and dislike for yourself, that is going to hinder you from making change, because you have a conflict with your identity. So as much as you might try and change, that dislike, that hatred of self actually will hold you back, which is why we look at the identity first. But we go up and down that pyramid. So this is something that is really intrinsic in the work that I do. It's not purely, thank you, Stacey. Thank you. It's not just one place that we look at, and that's why I call it a multi-layered transformational healing experience. It's something that over the years of working with bodies, with minds, with skills and roles in corporate environments, and then with entrepreneurs and with parents and health, all of these things have a bearing on your life and your happiness. So there isn't one, people say to me, Shirley, why don't you just niche? You're really good at this and you're really good, but you're also really good at this, and you're also so I don't niche. I don't subscribe to just one thing, and I have spent 20 years mastering these areas so that I can be of best, be the best for my clients and be the best for me, because I'm constantly evolving. So if any of that resonates with you, I'm hoping you're going to put some of it into practice. And the day one homework really is the first step to changing any behaviors and habits, which is the identifying and bringing them into that pre-contemplation, bringing them into the contemplation space, into awareness, noticing habits and behaviors that are holding you back, that are not allowing you to achieve your direction of purpose. And you might actually stumble across your direction of purpose as you unravel this. So, yeah, I hope that was helpful. Now, I'm actually going to record a separate clearing around this because there was a lot of information there. So I will be doing that a little bit later. I'll be recording it and then I'll be posting it. So you'll find it on this page. I'll also, I've got on my list today, just to pull out the audio from day 2 for the body meditation. Some of you have asked to have that as an audio, so you can use that. You can download it and you can use it. So I'll be posting that for you. And just as an aside, I'm going to keep this 5-day experience available for not very long, so probably for a month, but then that will come down. So please do go through and write any notes that you wish. And oh, got something in my eye. And let me know if you wish to discuss any changes for yourself. If you would like a session, if you're looking for a session, I'm happy to get on a quick call with you. You can actually book that through the booking link that's pinned at the top of my profile. And it's called Calling in Your Joyful Abundance. It's a consultation call. It's 15 minutes and it is complimentary. And there if you do book in, we'll look at where you are, where in this pyramid, where you are in your stages of change potentially, and we'll discuss if it's appropriate for you to work with me just yet, or if there are any tips or any things that I can offer you on the spot to begin your journey. So please do book in. I love to have conversations with people. There is no pressure for booking in to work with me on those calls. It is literally discovery and exploration for yourself. And for people who are really, really wishing to make a change. So I'm happy to do that. And I'm looking forward to seeing you tomorrow, where I'll actually be doing self-healing live. So the difference between doing it live and obviously recording it is you're going to get to see how I follow those threads in order to get some clarity and release some limitations, release behaviors, release habits around you need to work hard for success, you need to work hard to achieve your goals. Everything around the hard work paradigm that's been prevalent in our society from very, 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 very long ago. I mean, we're not talking 20, 30 years, we're talking hundreds of years, where, you know, right back to the industrial age and beyond, where it was considered the only way to achieving something was through pure, hard work, and not necessarily enjoyable. So that's a great one for those of you who may have some layers of that. So when I do self-healing, I use theta healing, I use access, and I use my own blend of deconditioning, etc. So you'll get to see how I work with that, and you'll get to experience it as I work with it. The transformation can happen through you too. So I hope you join me tomorrow, and I will see you soon. Have an amazing day, evening. And if you are watching on replay, please put replay in the comments. Love to know that you have benefited, and please write down any aha moments that you've got. I'd love to hear them. Thanks very much. Bye.